There's actually nothing better than walking through the exhibit floor and seeing somebody discover something for themselves for the very first time.
The Lawrence Hall of Science is unique in that it has an incredible diversity and breadth of programs for helping the public and kids in schools and teachers learn and understand about science.
The best work we do cuts across the divisions of public programs, curriculum development, and professional development. A good idea can get repurposed in these different venues, and every time we repurpose it, we make it better.
When teachers get Lawrence Hall of Science materials, they know they'll work in the classroom.
I used to think that it was just explosions and bubbles and all that stuff, but now I realize that it can be anything. You can study basically anything, even a table.
The kinds of critical thinking that are part of how a scientist approaches the world is one of the biggest gifts that you can give to kids.
In terms of barriers that had existed previously with regard to science and science education in underserved communities, what we're doing now is trying to sort of blur these boundaries. In many cases, to trample these boundaries.
I see it as another way to make the world a better place.
Lawrence Hall of Science is unique because it's part of UC Berkeley, and we aspire to the level of excellence of Berkeley. We have a public science center that also does curriculum development and works with teachers. So we serve our region, we serve the state, we serve the nation, we serve the world.
The Public Science Center is really about exciting kids, exciting people about science, and having them understand more about the world around them in a way that is actually accessible. It's not about school, it's not about book learning, it's not about somebody lecturing at them, it's more about them engaging in the process and having that same experience that I think scientists have who are really deeply engaged in their research and their work. They really are in it for the thrill of the chase.
I saw that.
Right there. You saw that?
We have about 220,000 visitors coming through every year, including those school kids that come through for workshops.
But is the python poisonous?
No, they're not.
We also go out to school sites and see students, about 150,000 of them a year, through our traveling van programs. And so those who cannot either afford to come here or the transportation issues are too big for them to actually come to the Lawrence Hall of Science, we can bring hands-on science experience to them at their schools, no matter where they are in Northern California. We really think it's important here at Lawrence Hall of Science to serve those who have traditionally been underserved. That includes disabled communities, it includes English language learners, it includes immigrants, it includes folks who think that a museum is not for them or that science education really is something that they're not interested in.
The next ring out is our professional development activities, which are sometimes local or regional, but also statewide and national in scope. About 20,000 teachers a year.
Sometime in the late 1980s, a small revolution took place, and we started to think more about scientific literacy and science for all Americans, science for all people, what people need to know in order to be educated decision makers and to carry on productive lives. And so it is about access, and it is about finding ways for all types of learners to have an experience directly with phenomenon and organisms and ideas. One of the ways that we try to provide access to science is by helping teachers to use a whole variety of different instructional strategies and instructional materials to teach science concepts.
We had guidebooks about the ocean. Each classroom studied a different part of the ocean. I built a kelp forest in my classroom. We learned what lived in it. For Halloween, I dressed as a kelp forest. And the kids were fish and I was seaweed.
Equity is of critical importance to everyone that works at the Lawrence Hall of Science. I believe very strongly, and I think there's a lot of research done here at Berkeley and elsewhere that support that children can continue to develop their intellect and their comprehension of complex ideas as they're acquiring a second language like English. And so a lot of the work that I do is really driven by giving English learners access to the best possible science education that they can get.
My classroom had has 35 second language learners. At the hall, they understand. They know what it's like to stand in front of a classroom. They're experienced teachers, many of them. They have things in other languages. They're ready to work with everybody.
Our curriculum products are used widely throughout the United States and even in sites and centers internationally, most recently in Asia and the Middle East.
A conservative estimate is that we reach approximately 20% of students in our nation's school, kindergarten through grade 12. One of the best things about our curriculum programs at the Hall is that we don't just stop when they are a published product. We actually think that in some ways that's when our work is beginning. And I think something like this really works to get the unit goals to pop out so that we spend a lot of effort to support the implementation of these materials. We create networks of teachers around the nation. We have over 2,500 of these associates who we know well enough to give a call to and find out how it's going. One of the Hall's biggest and most successful programs, curriculum programs, is the Full Option Science System, the F.O.S.S program. It's the single most used elementary science curriculum in the country.
If they shine a red light on a green object, it will appear black.
Right.
The people who work on F.O.S.S are some of the most dedicated staff I know. They're striving to develop materials and experiences for kids from a kid's point of view.
One of the greatest rewards that we experience on a regular basis is when teachers revolutionize their teaching. When they understand that this is a medium where students can interact with each other, where they can interact with ideas, where they can develop their minds, and they completely change their teaching style, that's very, very rewarding for us.
Kevin Cuff is an example of one of our project directors in the curriculum program who is doing some cutting-edge work. He's involving kids in doing research into factors in the environment that affect those kids' health and community.
We found that 72% of these samples in Washington, D.C. exceed the EPA limit.
The students that we work with are generally from low-income, underserved communities in the Bay Area. Recent educational research indicates that relevancy, how relevant students see science as being, is an important key to their learning science better and achieving at higher levels.
It feels really good because at first I thought that it was hard to learn how to do this.
And now what do you think?
I think that's tight.
I think our main goal, again, is to ensure that as many people as possible in the general populace become scientifically literate. In order for that to occur, it's going to involve the participation of parents, community members, and the kids. What we're really talking about is changing the culture, to some extent, of the environments within which we work.
Well, Seeds of Science, Roots of Reading is a project that we began about 3 years ago, and it's targeted at early elementary students. It's really important that kids learn to read and write, but the pressure on the curriculum is so great that there just isn't the same time for science.
And then right here is the meeting point. Meeting.
And that's what originally set us on the path to think, well, could we involve kids in doing units where they are learning to read and write in the context of learning about science?
We wanted to know more about what lives in the soil.
What I like about the curriculum is that so many different people are involved in testing it out and making it teacher and kid friendly, and yet not talking down to us. And it's rich and full.
I think when you see the kids in Rita's classroom, you will understand how these kids have become experts in the topic area.
It is investigating something, observing, and close observation.
The great thing about our Seeds of Science, Roots of Reading development process is that we have all kinds of folks sitting around the table. We have researchers and practitioners. We have literacy experts and science experts.
You know, our motto in Seeds and Roots is read it, write it, talk it, do it. And we don't care what order you do those four in, as long as you're doing all four, they'll all support one another. And that's really what Seeds and Roots is about. I love working up there because they're all such inquisitive and interesting people and truly creative in the best sense of that term.
The ideas of science are hard. They're complex ideas. They're difficult to understand. And so we're continually looking for new and creative ways to communicate with the public about these increasingly complex ideas that are coming out of research and technology.
We don't really know what the hot topics will be 20 years from now, but we can teach kids how to think critically. So when the next issue, whatever it is, comes around, they can be asking the questions, looking for the evidence, making decisions that are based on evidence, not just on opinions. That's what's so great about teaching kids science.
One of the things that drives me to get up every morning and stay until 8 o'clock every night is this whole idea of changing the definition of science, redefining science, as it were, to include other members of society who heretofore may not have been participating in science at any level.
So many people have not had the chance to contribute to science that when given a small window of opportunity can contribute, can ask perhaps different questions, solve different problems, have different motivations, and enrich science itself. It's not just for the good of individuals we're talking about, it's for the good of society as a whole, and it's for the good of science as a whole.